Okay, again, this is 4-7, and I'm hoping to give you guys a quiz tomorrow on chapter 4, and then probably, I'm thinking Tuesday of next week, maybe Wednesday, give you guys the chapter 4 test. So anyway, some of these I don't want you to do. So they're talking about using properties to multiply decimals. They're talking, when they say properties here, they're talking about the associative property and the commutative property. And so let me pull them up here so you guys can see them. So take a look at these right here. The associative property. Here's what I want you to remember. The associative property, okay, has to do with, oh, it's not staying? Oh, it's not saying. Oh, well, okay. Associative property has to do with grouping. And so here's an example. Okay, here's an algebraic example. A plus, and then B plus C in parentheses is the same as, in parentheses, A plus B plus C. They just changed where the grouping symbols are. And so here's a real example. 2 plus, and then in parentheses 3 plus 4, is the same as, in parentheses, 2 plus 3 plus 4. I think most of you intuitively know that. You can just look at it and go, well, yeah, that kind of makes sense. So just remember, associative starts with an A, has to do with grouping. Okay? Just remember that. Commutative property, all right, doesn't have to do with grouping, but it has to do with order. So the commutative property of addition, okay, has to do with changing the order. That's the main thing I want you to remember. Commutative property is changing the order. So here's an example. Real good example. 10 plus 20 plus 30 plus 40 equals 100. Well, 40 plus 30 plus 20 plus 10 also equals 100. So, what I would do somewhere in your book, and I'm looking at one here, maybe you could kind of squeeze it in this area here in your book, and you got some area here. Just write associative property and then grouping of numbers or parentheses. Okay, just so you remember that's what they're talking about. Just all you have to do is write associative property and grouping of numbers. Okay, and then again somewhere, in here or all the way across in here somewhere, write commutative property. This one right here, commutative property, and then write changing the order. Changing the order. So those are two things you need to remember. Associative has to do with grouping in parentheses. And commutative property has to do with just changing the order. 2 plus 3 plus 4 is the same as 4 plus 3 plus 2. You don't have to write this whole thing down. That's a lot. Although there's good examples in there. Again, just associative property is grouping. And commutative property right here has to do with changing the order. Okay? So, having said that, I'm not, they've got an example here. I'm not worried about it. Let's move down. Okay, I'm not worried about the convince me. You can put an X through that. And if you didn't finish, I only got 5% left. 14 minutes, it's going to be close. They have another example at the top of the next page. And so 1.25 times 1.5, you can see that they used the associative property. They put in some grouping symbols there. So let's just jump down to the guided practice. And I got to go through this pretty quick before I lose juice. So let's see here. Mason is multiplying. Look at that, Mason. 3 times 5 times 0.1 times 0.1. What decimal multiplication problem is he solving? Okay. So, yeah, let's see here. I'm just going to give you that one. It's going to be 0.3 times 0.5. And then solve it. So cross out number 2, not worried about that. And then in 3 through 6, it says use properties to find each product. That's not necessary. Just find each product. In other words, solve it. Hopefully all of you know by now, I'm looking at number 3 here. So we have 0.3 times 0.7, which is the same thing as 0.3 times 0.7. Okay? And then, what's 3 times 7? How many decimal places have we moved the decimals over? 2. So where's the decimal? So the answer is 0.21. Let me give you another example, and this is not something we could do on our head, but if I wrote this, if I wrote 276.23 times 12.014, wow, it's going to be a big number. And the number is this. It's 3318. This is the actual number. 62722. 62722. Raise your hand if you think you know where the decimal would go in this number. I'm just curious. Raise your hand if you think you know where it would go. So about half the class. So look, those of you that didn't raise your hand, watch what I'm doing here. So I'm gonna go all the way to the right of the number and just count how many decimal places. 1, 2, what? 3, right? And then I'm gonna start right here at this number. 1, 2. What's 3 plus 2? 5 places. So I'm gonna count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that means the decimal is going to go right there between the 8 and the 6. All you do is count over how many decimal places. Okay? All right, so you guys can do, whoops. You can do all of those. And let's take a quick look. Don't sharpen now, thank you. Number 16, total rainfall in March was 3.6. In April, it was 1.4 times as much. What's the total rainfall? It's going to be 3.6 times times 1.4. Number 17, a newly hatched alligator is 0.5 or a half a foot long. The adult alligator is 16.4 times. Okay. So it's going to be 0.5 times 16.4 equals, and that's going to give you a number, and then whatever that number is, okay, in fact, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to call that number z. Whatever z is, then you're going to subtract the 0.5. Subtract 0.5. And then you will have your answer. So there's a couple steps to that. 0.5 times 16.4 equals z, and then z subtract 0.5 and you'll have your answer. 18, I want you to fill these two out right here. And then 19, 19 you can do. This one was, 20 was kind of confusing, but let me set it up for you. It's going to be 6.5 times 0.8 times 1.2 equals, and then you'll have your answer. And I'm going quickly here because I don't want to run out of juice here. 21 and 22 you can do on your own. Okay, that's it. I'm going to end this. Stop video.